We're Alive, a story of survival.
You there?
I'm listening. You have her?
Well, it wasn't easy. But, yeah, I got her out. She's sedated in the back of my Hummer.
How much did you give her? I want her awake.
What the hell you expect? Was the only way to get out of there quietly.
Bring her to Gardenia. It's south of your tower. And there's a golf course off Prairie.
Yeah, I know it. I used to live around there.
18th green. 4 hours. Don't be late.
That's it?
That's it. We're good. 4 hours will give us time to get down there and stake it out before they get there.
Ladies and gentlemen, because of some of you, Scott and I have been tuned into some of the great free audiobooks, dramas that can be found online. We have had the chance to enjoy The Leviathan Chronicles, Enemy Lines, and Asunder, just to name a few. It's also because of a listener that Scott and I found about a certain great zombie apocalypse drama that Scott and I have talked about a lot over the last few months in this past year. And now we can say we're going to be talking with the creator of this audiobook tonight. For we are delighted to be speaking with Mr. Casey Wayland, the executive producer of the audiobook series We're Alive. Mr. Wayland, thank you for taking time to talk with us in the Sci-Fi Diner podcast.
Of course. Thanks, Miles and Scott, for having me on.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're excited. You know, Miles mentioned that, we found out about now, let me back up. Do you call yourself a audiobook, an audio drama? I mean, there's so many terms that kind of blend together out there. I mean, how do you refer to We're Alive?
I would go audio drama. Yeah, audio drama, it's probably the best term because it's not actually on the radio anymore. And it's like the most technical term I think we have.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, we first found out about it from a listener on our Facebook fan page who knew we were into listening to audio dramas and audiobooks, and also just in some of the books that are out there just as podcast form, and mentioned yours, and we fell in love with it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, thank you very much.
Yeah, so yeah, very well done as far as production value goes, and just keeping us hooked. So, you know what? And we actually, I think it was midsummer, right? Because episodes were, I think when we got into it, maybe late spring, so there were a few episodes left of season 2, but we actually had the advantage of going through season 1 and season 2 like all at the same time. We didn't have to wait.
Right, we didn't listen to it as soon as it's debuted. I mean, I was listening to lots of We're Alive in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'm very happy to do so.
Yeah.
Well, and you get spoiled with it then, because all of a sudden you catch up and it's like then you get one a week and people are like, oh, I want more. And it's like, we've been doing this for 2 years just like this. We can't,
Yeah. You can't just dump it. But it does, we'll probably get into this a little bit later on, but it is, when you record a season like season 1 or season 2 or even season 3 that we have up and coming here, which is one of the reasons we're talking to you, is that in just a few short days we are going to get the first episode of season 3 dropped to us. Is the entire season recorded prior to release, or are you kind of recording them as you go along?
We've recorded it as we go for a couple reasons. One of them is it's a little bit more dynamic that way, and it's a little bit more organic of how a real TV series works. But we do 2 chapters at a time. So the first 2 chapters, chapter 25 and 26, are in the can in terms of the audio recording portion of it anyway.
Right. Oh, well, very good.
Cool. Well, so we do want to talk about We're Alive, but I was looking at your bio. You have a very interesting bio, so please tell us about yourself and your work.
Well, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I was in the military for 6 years. I was an engineer. Served overseas in Baghdad. I was there for a year all over the country of Iraq. Bounced a lot here and there because of engineering. They had me go to different spots that needed help with communications and stuff. Got my BA from Chapman University in writing and directing. I did all that simultaneous and did a lot of writing there, and just kind of pushed forward with a couple ideas, and We're Alive was one of them, and that's kind of where I am at now.
Cool. Yeah, very awesome. Now, we often talk about We're Alive being classified as really kind of, I guess, horror, sci-fi, fantasy maybe a little bit. What sort of influence, I guess this is a two-part. How in the heck did you come up with We're Alive, and what influences played into that?
Well, two big influences for me. One of them is Harry Potter, of course. I say of course because it's pretty synonymous in little pieces of the writing. But I just like the episodic way that they dramatize basically a really great story and characters, and a world that some people live in. And I thought that right there is a huge model for me of what taught me what's the most important about a story, and that's characters. Because you look at the names of a person and it pretty much tells you who they are, and it just a lot of embodiment of people, and these characters are just great inspirations there. In terms of We're Alive, it kind of all started with one concept, and that is the eternal question that everyone gets asked is, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse?
Right.
And having a military background, I thought, well, there's only one answer for me. And if it's in a sustainable environment, and it's the model of the tower, where you have that one area that's secure with the rest of it being, the ground floor, if that's secure, the rest of the building's okay. And that was kind of the idea of, okay, well, here's this. Now let's build around that and the characters and all the events. And in kind of one evening, I sat down and did like the entire series outline. Actually, it was over 2 nights, just did the whole series outline. And it's been a lot of like little things have been added to and expanded as the series goes on. But most of the major outlines were done on that first evening.
Now, when you say you had the series outline, are we talking about the whole arc of the entire series from beginning to end? Or are we talking about like the first season?
It was basically the whole series where I wanted it to go. Some of the later seasons were not as thought out, but the first and second season were like pretty detailed outlines from there.
Okay.
And the third and fourth season weren't as hugely, I wasn't as like micro organized with those as I was the first two. But a lot of it just came from that first sitting.
I think it's one of the questions I had. We talk about many times TV shows especially that maybe start out strong, but there's no definite end. You think of shows like Lost or Heroes that kind of really lose their way after a while and maybe come back once there's an end date. But it sounds like you have a target end for the series then.
Oh, yeah. That's been pretty much set in stone for a while now, and that's something once it comes, I'll be relieved because it's all working up towards that one ending. Okay. And that's something that I kind of, and I could be the negative or positive byproduct of Lost, where it's like I saw how that ended, and I'm like, I'm not going to let my series do this.
You probably not the only one who feels that way.
And we are thankful for that. How many?
Writers. That's part of the problem is you have too many people switching positions of lead writer, and it was a concept by J.J. Abrams in the beginning, and then just took off from other people, and yeah, it's hard to have a lot of mind melds when you have something like that complex of a story. Right.
Wait, so we are about ready to enter into season 3. How many seasons are in the series, or if you can tell us that?
Oh, there's 4. It's a definite 4. All 4 have been pretty much hashed out, outlined. The details of the arcs of everyone's there. The only thing that's a little bit fuzzy on is the details of the pacing. Some things happen sooner than others. I like to have like a really good general outline of where I'm supposed to be in a certain episode, but I also get to have some play with the events that happen inside of there.
Okay. Very good. Well, that's interesting. I'm glad to see that there's, again, like we said, a definite end to the series. Not that we want it to end, but a definite end is that you have a definitive story in mind,
a clear vision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a journey for all the characters, and it would be a waste if it just like ran into a wall or because there's a lot of things that we've been planning along the way, and I use the Lost example again is you have to make sure you have the strategic answers to those questions, and because you can't just have them all come out at the end. Right,
absolutely. So you kind of drop little hints along the way. Miles.
This is more of a production quality of We're Alive. Now, when one listens to We're Alive, they're getting it free, but they're hearing a first-rate production. You have actors, sound effects, even background music. What does it take to make a audiobook of this quality?
Talking about fundage, or are you talking about heart?
Yeah, I think maybe some of both. So
yeah.
You can talk about both if you want.
I don't really get into the budget aspect of it a lot, and part of the reason is because a lot of the man hours and the costs of production are done by people who do it for free.
Right.
And I mean, we do have first line audio editors, but I'm also doing audio editing as well, and I'm doing the writing and the directing, and I don't get a paycheck from this as of yet. I mean, there's certain things we get here and there, but it's definitely not a paying gig by any stretch. And if it was a normal production that had sound designers and writers and things on roll, it'd be a much bigger beast, much like the productions you see out of BBC and things like that. If we had the budget, we'd be even bigger. So if anybody wants to invest and make it bigger that way, I mean, there's always that option.
Right.
But a lot of the production comes from the heart and soul of people behind the scenes. The actors are not paid the rate that unions would like them to be paid. It's kind of like we do. The contracts that we're on are all like we negotiate the contracts with the actors for royalties and stuff like that, and make sure that they are taken care of. And they know that this is like a big portfolio piece, and hopefully it's going to become big, and their investment pays off too, because everyone at this point is like investing in this for this project.
You answered some of this already, but maybe just to help maybe flesh it out more. Because you're offering We're Alive for free, what do you and your cast and crew get out of making this production?
The satisfaction of a quality product be getting aired.
Well, it is.
That's to be honest, that's pretty much it. I've gone in the hole a lot. I know a lot of other people have with this production, just investing in it, and it's for me, it's a lot of as a writer especially. What good is your writing if no one reads it, or if no one listens to it, or you don't have something produced? And that was one of the intentions of this, is to be like, okay, well, here's the story. Here's what I can be as a writer. Here's what I can do. Hire me, kind of thing. And it turned out to be where, okay, instead of this is hire me, it's maybe we can actually negotiate the royalties for We're Alive to become something bigger. And then for my next project that I come up with, because I have a whole bunch in the back storage of where I'm going to go next, being able to get funding and see like, hey, look, this is what we did for this amount, and this is where we're going to go from here. What do you think the next stage could be? That kind of a little stepping stone.
You mentioned something about We're Alive, the potential for it to be bigger. Has there been anything in the works? Like, are we looking at potential film? Are we talking about potential TV series, webisodes? I mean, has there been any of that discussion at all as a result?
We have been approached a little bit here and there for video games and films and things like that, and none of them have been to a production scale that I would like, mainly because if they're going to do it, they're going to have to do it right. And that's the reason why We're Alive is currently an audio drama, because it's limitless.
Right.
Anybody who's watching a TV show and knows the kind of low-budget show that it could be knows that there's limitations to where the story can go. With this, anything can happen. And I think that's part of the fun of it, is we are low-budget enough to basically throw at whatever our characters we want and not have the worries of, okay, how are we going to film this, so to speak.
Right. And it's very true. And you guys have done some very creative stuff when you've done just the, I want to say filming, but the recording of it. I mean, I was on the YouTube channel that you guys have, and you chapter 16, you're recording this in what looks like a hot tub. So tell us about this.
Well, with Chapter 16, for those of you who don't want spoilers, skip this part. But for 16, there's a lot of portions that take place in the water. And I'm a big person for, I know how sound works, and I know how sound waves travel. And when people speak when they're in water, sounds like they're in water, because the sound wave bounces off. Some of it gets absorbed in the water, some of it doesn't. And there's no way you could ever get the type of realism out of someone standing at a microphone who's actually in the water. It's very, very difficult. So by putting them in the environment and in the hot tub, it gave us so much more realism of what they're actually doing, and it gave a feel of what they're cold and they're trying to deal with this, and it gave it something that I think that most other productions would glaze over. Whereas we saw that as a great advantage to us.
Right, very cool. And I think along with that, the question is, I see a lot of shots when I see pictures and stuff of you guys standing in the same room recording. Is that the way you typically record, or is it typically like, all right, you're on today, I need you in, and are you guys doing this all together? Tell us a little bit about the process of how an episode of We're Alive comes about when you, at least for the audio, not the writing, but the audio recording part of it.
Yeah, we record every 2 months, and we get pretty much everybody together that we possibly can and record at the same time in the same room. The reason why I do that is just because, and I think this is the flaw of a lot of people who work in audio, is they think that because you can record them separately that you should. There's a lot of energy and a lot of just passion that people can share together in a scene if they're acting together, rather than something that could, be put together later. And there's so much to be said about like people being able to improv together and feed off of each other. And I mean, there's a couple scenes coming up in the third season that are so difficult. It would have been impossible if the actors would have been separate, because there's different emotions and things that no one can share if they're not in that same space. And that's one of my prerequisites for especially doing this is being able to have those people in the same space, and only if we can't make arrangements that we get like 1 or 2 pickups with people.
Yeah, I was just curious because I like you have heard, like, for example, I know that Leviathan Chronicles does do exactly what you said. They kind of record in parts and bits, but then I know that Prometheus Radio Theater does theirs all live. So yeah, so that's very cool. And I saw what sort of mics are you using when you're recording live like that?
We use Audio Technica's 4073s.
Okay.
And they're shotgun mics, and the reason why I like shotgun mics, just to get geeky technical with you.
Oh, I want you to. So.
Is the pickup patterns of those microphones are very similar to what we would see in film.
Okay.
And so when we're trying to mimic that of film, and people have gotten used to what film has sound like over the last couple of years, we try and get that same sort of resonance inside the recordings as well. It probably would be just perfectly fine if we use the same old radio microphones that they used to use, but it's just one of those things that I really like is just the pickup and sound of a shotgun mic.
Oh, very cool. Well, we like the sound of it too. So, go ahead, Miles.
No, I like the authenticity you created. You have sometimes characters talking, on walkie-talkies, and you actually hear them, what they would sound as if you hear them on a walkie-talkie. I mean, it's you're definitely hearing something very authentic when you're listening to this. Yeah, all of that stuff we do in post. All the voice effects and things like that. When we record it, it's very, very dead. And then all the reverberation, if they're in a big room and stuff like that, that's all done in post. Oh, okay. Mainly because it's just something you have to do. Mm-hmm. Like that entire Lizzie scene with another spoiler with her on the recording. Right. All that had to be like we had this entire elaborate, huge scene that was really well sound designed, crushed down to it being played back on a tape.
Yeah, well, very cool, and it sounds. I mean, you can't tell that it's done afterwards. No, it sounds like it sounds authentic. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Oh no, I was just saying thank you. That's something that we strive to do is make sure it feels like the people are in their spots. Now, one of our listeners, Jason, on our Facebook fan page is asking, are you going to continue to release season 3, like in these 3-part chapters? I think that's been kind of a trademark of We're Alive over the past, at least season or two, the past 2 seasons, that you kind of have these 3-part chapters that you release. Is this kind of the way you're still headed for this season? Yep, same format as before. And part of the reason for that, and a lot of people be like, I want more. Well, that's exactly right. They do want more. An average commute is around 20 minutes or so. So that's a good thing to shoot for there. Also, people being able to come back and give their theories every single week and interact with the other fans. Like the forum blows up
while the episodes are going. And it's just like people are interacting, giving their theories of, oh, did you see the cliffhanger this week? Like, it's very much the serial audio radio drama kind of feel that they used to have. If we released one chapter a month, it would not have that. People wouldn't come back for more. We wouldn't have that, the camaraderie of people sharing theories of what's going on. It's like the last season finale was all one piece, and can you imagine it was broken up where people were giving theories back and forth? It would have been it would have been difficult to break up, but at the same time, it just gives a little bit more to the show than just what you listen to.
Right. Yeah, and I think that it leaves you hanging, it leaves you wanting more, it leaves people wanting to come back. So,
and that's something we're building in even more. Like the weird thing about our first 2 seasons is the episode breaks weren't actually built into the episodes. They weren't like written in, and now they are. So people can expect even more cliffhanger-like endings between episodes, because there's some that just didn't have that, and they'll have a lot more this season.
Wait, so what you're really saying, Casey, is that you want people to be cursing your name at the end of the episode by leaving them hanging?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody hates me because they want more, then that's exactly what we're doing right. We're not that somebody's going to be bored with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree totally with that. I do have a question, and this is bugging me. Is I think one of my favorite characters is Saul. Right, and you know what I'm going to ask before I ask, and you can totally say I can't tell you, and I'm okay with that. He disappears at the end of season 2. This is a spoiler in case for those of you that maybe want to go back and have never heard of, We're Alive, although I can't see how you wouldn't. We talk about it all the time. Yeah, he disappears. Are we going to see him back, or can't you tell me?
I can't really say, but a lot of what is going to happen in season 3 is I don't like hanging loose endings in terms of any plot lines. Anything that has an unanswered question typically means that it's still got an answer that's coming.
Okay.
And definitely that's I would expect an answer for that in the upcoming season for sure. There's a lot of hanging pieces from the season finale right now that have to be answered. Yeah. They may not come right away. They may take some time, but I definitely will say that with every question there is an answer.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said much earlier in the interview. You mentioned about how We're Alive is really how to survive a zombie apocalypse. Is you place them all in a tower and they protect it, but they have no tower anymore. So you just shot yourself in the foot, Casey.
Well, that was the original concept of what it started. Now, where it ends is something completely different. I mean, These characters, they've had that safety of that building, and if you saw the artwork this morning that we released for season 3, it's gone. The tower.
Yeah. I did see the artwork. It's like an A-bomb went off.
Yeah, pretty much, and then they cannot go back and live in that tower anymore. Their little safe haven, whatever it was, is gone. So it's going to add a lot of new challenges to whoever's still remaining, and it's going to add a lot of different elements of what happens in the next 2 seasons for sure.
Right. Well, side note, who does the artwork? Has it been the same person over the past 2 years, or do you have someone different?
It has. It's Ben Hosak is our artist, which is funny because we went to school together, in high school together, and then we reconnected later on, and so I love the artwork. He's such a great, and it's a great embodiment of what I like to put in the show, because instead of being in your face, gory, like the typical zombie pictures that you see, it's got mystique behind it and mystery, and it's very. It's not showing you the violence in your face. It's alluding to that.
Right.
And that's what I like. And unfortunately, he didn't start the series with me. The first artist, which I will unfortunately say is myself. And if you look and if you dig deep enough, I'm sure you'll find it. It's pretty bad.
Right. Well, but I think, one of the things that the art does do is it really shows the earthiness and the grittiness of these people who are living just a normal life, and this hits, and they have to survive. And the artworks, it's a lot of grays, a lot of browns. For those of you that, I mean, you can't really show that in a podcast here, but it's really earthy, and I think it's kind of an arm of the podcast, if you will.
Yeah, and that's kind of the intention of it, because we don't give you any visuals that are produced from us about the series, except for those cover arts. So if we give you something there, it's intentional. Like the figure inside the picture, we don't tell you who it is, and you'll have to figure that out later on. And like one of the chapters was the broken window with the chair. It's like meant to add more questions to, what does this mean, so to speak?
Right. And I think it does. It has to also lend to a lot of the discussion that goes on in your forums as well.
Yeah, we also have to be careful with, and we did a lot of this in the beginning. We don't do as much of it anymore. Is putting faces with the names, and the reason we don't do that is because people already have an idea of what this character looks like.
Right.
So by giving them that image, we sometimes shoot ourselves in the foot of like disturbing the mental picture that people create.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned that, like, unlike some zombie shows and stuff, that you don't show a lot of gore. You don't talk about. There isn't a lot of gore happening. Maybe alluded to. Is there a reason that you chose to approach it that way?
It could be because I've been exposed to a lot of real violence that I don't like it, and I try and maintain. If it can be all gory and mushy and really get into the details of things, but it doesn't have to be. It's very much the difference between what a suspense and what a horror is, and we could be extremely gory, and I don't think that's a good choice, especially the kind of character piece we are. If there's death or destruction, which there is, we don't really get into the details. We let the details fill in your mind, and if it happens, it happens.
What you're giving us is also, you're making us use our imagination, and that's what these audio dramas should do, is make us think and maybe put in, we can certainly come to those conclusions ourselves, and so it's kind of almost lazy in some ways to show the gore or tell about it. I mean, so what you're doing is certainly working.
Yeah, I tend to want to, like, in film terms, like, you can have something that's a really horrific scene and do it in a way that's the reactions of people is more important than the gore itself, so to speak.
Right. Mm-hmm. Isn't that kind of what Alfred Hitchcock was? He was kind of known for that, right? Kind of not really
that's
showing.
Exactly what he was known for.
Yeah, kind of that old thing. And I can't tell you how much I've. For example, you mentioned like the Harry Potter series. I read the books and I tried to watch the movies, and I just have such a difficult time with that because there's just no way that they are near as good as the books were.
No, and there's give and takes, of course, with any translation of film, but you're never going to get that rich feel of the world. And there's a lot of things that you can do in a book you can't do in a movie. It's
Absolutely.
Just,
Yeah. Questions.
This is sort of the ubiquitous question here. When you were coming up with the We're Alive concept, were you aware of Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead? There are some parallels. I mean, they're both of them are human survival stories.
Yeah, to be honest, I have not read it. And I wasn't really that aware of it. When I originally started this out, the intention was to maybe start in the audio world and become a visual, because there wasn't a zombie television show when I first started this audio drama. And so it was the idea of, okay, well, we can maybe bridge a medium, and this is where we can start and go from there. And then I found out about Walking Dead probably about 6 months into the project, and then it was like, oh, damn, I didn't even know this thing existed. I used to be a big comic person back in the day. I just like to collect them. I wasn't a big fan of reading them, just because I grew up with older brothers that loved comic books and loved to read them. I was more or less I liked looking at the pictures, and I loved the collecting aspect of it. And yeah, I never read it. A lot of people have told me that there's different parallels here and there, and I'm like, well, with any zombie genre, there's going to be a lot of things that people are going to come up with that are very similar, only because you're telling a story about people trying to survive in a world. And to those ends, there's going to be a lot of things that people are going to conflicts that are going to come up that are going to be the same commonality amongst all of them. I mean, it's pretty much war in a way.
Yeah, well, and despite some similarities, the premise is very different. I mean, you're coming at it from a very militaristic kind of centerpiece, with defending the tower, and you have some military that are kind of in charge, although there's this whole balance between civilian and military control in the tower that happens. And Walking Dead doesn't have that at all. It's just a band of kind of misfits that have a police officer kind of guiding them. So very different premises at the same time.
Yeah, having a military background, I think, lends to that, and I think we might see more of that in the future of the show, especially with the group of survivors that did make it out are headed to Fort Irwin, or they're going to try and head to Fort Irwin. Not to give anything away, but that could be, that's a military base, so you never know what they could find there. They haven't seen a lot of zombies that were military. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of weird scenarios that people could think of what could happen with military stuff. So, yeah, not too much away. But,
yeah,
there it is.
Yeah. Well, so season 3 drops on the 2nd. Is that correct?
Yes, the first episode. The first episode is we're back to our typical 3 episodes per chapter run. So the 2nd will be the first chapter, then the 9th will be the second part of the first chapter, and so on and so forth. So
they'll drop like every week. Will be one part.
Yeah, every week, and then in between chapters will be a week off.
Okay.
And basically from now to the next, year and a half later, we'll be in production for this season, because it's an intense production schedule where we're like writing and producing this at the same time gets crazy, because each episode at least has 40 hours of work a week. And then on top of writing and everything else, it's just keep on shoveling it in.
Yeah. So, I mean, you obviously it's more than just you doing this work.
There's a whole team that behind us. We have a line producer who does a lot of the organization with the contracts, and with because we are actually considered one of the radio unions. We're under AFRA. We have another producer with me, Grayson Stone, helps me with the production aspects of it, and we have new first line editors, sound designers this season as well. So that's our production team in the background of getting these episodes out and in time.
Right. So we mentioned that it drops the 2nd. Anything other than the little hints that you've given us that you can tell us about season 3 without spoiling it? Because we obviously want to enjoy the story. But is there anything you can tell us about it?
Yeah, there's a lot of people have asked, are we going to have unanswered questions? Are things going to be revealed? And at this point in the series, I would expect a lot more answers than questions. There will be some more questions that come up here and there, but a lot of it will be lending to the answers of what's happening and get to the crux of what the finale of the series is going to be. So it's a couple setups and a lot of finishing up some hanging chads of storylines and things like that.
And are you reaching back all the way into season 1 to answer some questions from there?
Of course. I mean, the big thing is, especially with this series, and one of the things I want to make sure I did was not only do I pose the questions, but I answer them in a way that's relevant to the story, which means that if it's not relevant in the story at that time, then wait until the right moment to give the answer. Because I didn't want... why reveal something in the weird spot when it's like, okay, it's strategic, if the question's asked in this way, everyone's like, well, when are you going to talk about Michael and where he went during that time at the water station, and who is this and who is this? And it's like, that answer is going to come about when it's relevant to the story. Because if all of a sudden in the 2nd season he talked about that event or what happened at the time, it probably had nothing to do with the 2nd season and would have been a waste.
Right.
So it's a strategic, release of these answers.
Right. And I have, before we get the stats, is where people can find the Zombie Podcast and where they can actually, and how they can support you. Will Skittles ever make a comeback?
Good question. Let me ask you this. Do you think there's hanging pieces of information from Skittles?
Not too much.
Okay.
But I mean, but I could be totally wrong. And but he was a character that when he came on, he was so distinct that he's just a familiar voice, I guess.
Yeah, that actually is the voice of Porky Pig, which is a little odd. Bob Bergen, who does a lot of voice work in the Hollywood world of things. But yeah, I mean,
is he the guy that voiced Porky Pig?
Yeah, he's the actual voice of Porky Pig.
Very cool.
The WB. So it's kind of funny when some of our raw takes, which I don't think I'm actually allowed to release, but it's like, because he does the Porky Pig voice, but it's like he did Skittles and then he did Porky Pig right afterwards, and I just busted of laughing. It was awesome.
Oh, man. Okay, so where can people find the We're Alive, the zombie podcast, and how can they support We're Alive?
There's a couple ways. Well, to get the show, now that we've spoiled it all for you, is
right.
Is on www.zombiepodcast.com. And there's links for everything in there, from the MP3 version that people can directly download to the Zune link, to the iTunes link, to the feed burner. I mean, whatever your flavor is, we pretty much got it on there. I will say there are better versions that don't have any commercial breaks. They don't have the interruptions. The paid versions are on the iTunes audiobook store, on Amazon.com. You can get the CD version. And those things come back to help support the show and keep it going. And those are, remastered versions of the show. So if we went back and did tweaks and fixes to the first and second season when we produced those CDs. And so people can support it that way, or we have a merchandise store where people can buy T-shirts. And right now there's like a coupon code you can put on to get a free sticker with any order, and there's posters and stuff like that. So there's a lot of ways people can give back, or if they just want to interact with the show, we have the forum on the website as well, where people can go and talk. And lots of people have a lot of theories about what's going to happen in the third season. And I think once this first episode drops, it's not going to stop.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait, Casey. We're excited about it, and just can't wait till Monday. Monday rolls around, and we get some We're Alive.
That'll be good stuff.
Yeah. Do you have like a certain time it's going to drop that I can be keeping an eye out on my iTunes feed?
Oh, we do 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the episodes.
All right.
Typically, I upload a little bit before that and prep it and things like that. I can't guarantee it'll be there till 9 a.m. That's just the clock that is the We're Live. We'll just shoot for that time. And then iTunes sometimes takes a couple minutes to download or to update if you're on a mobile phone. And so those things do happen. So just keep aware that it will be on that Monday, depending on where you are in the world. You can get it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Casey, for joining us at the Sci-Fi Diner podcast tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Scott and Miles. It was great to be here.
Yeah.
Look forward to start of season 3.
Yep, I cannot wait.